Hey everybody, welcome back to Jolly SEO's TLDR. Today we have Nick Musica, founder of Optics. And Nick, thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, back at you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's awesome working together on and off, and I'm pretty honest about the fact that I'm not the most technical SEO out there. I'm good at outreach. I'm good at offsite. Who do you have?
So yeah, it's a guest to the show. He wanted to come up, or I was gonna lose some skin in the process of saying no.
First appearance, yeah, then you'd be grimacing throughout. Well, I'm really excited you're back because you are more technical than me, and I don't really like the phrase pick his brain, but I'd love to pick your brain. We're going to talk a little bit today about duplicate content, cannibalization,
Yeah,
and canonical.
yeah,
So
yeah.
thanks so much. Where should we start? What do you think? You manage clients'
Y-
SEO as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would love to start where I saw your link on or your post on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and it was something like, let me know where I get this wrong. It's
No,
something like,
pump me up, please. Yeah.
is it worth paying $20 for 400 links or something like that?
Yeah, and for everyone comparison's sake, we don't do much promotion here, but Jolly's links cost 400, 600, $800, right? And so
Yeah, yeah,
naturally leads always ask us who can't afford us. We try to help them out on their way out and they're like, well, what about this? What about this? And the latest one was, what about this offer 400 links for $100? Is that worth it? And depends. Purely for SEO? Not from my perspective, although there are whole agencies that I've learned about that work with syndicated content and they
okay,
have their own case studies as one would as to how
yeah,
that generates value for clients. But I think those kind of newswire, coming from an
yeah,
outreach space, those kind of
yeah.
newswire
That's right.
tools, they're good for PR. They're good for the as seen on
That's right.
logo, the social proof. But
Totally.
but maybe we can start there, right? So if folks aren't aware, what is that stuff? It's called syndicated content. There's usually one original article, which is then duplicated out or syndicated out across many different sites. And we're going to talk about what duplicate content is, but why are those sites not penalized? There's a tag in there called canonical. And so those sites say, whoa, 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 heads up, I'm not copying, I'm just referencing. This is the original over here. And so that's why, as far as SEO value goes, not so much because they're telling Google,
Yeah.
I'm not the real deal. Don't worry about anything in this article, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, back in the day, there was, hey, do you know how many links you can get by dropping a press release?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it was years and years until Matt Cutts came out and said, "Oh, we never counted those links,"
Yeah.
and everyone's talking about it. And he's like, "Why would we? Like,
Yeah.
come on."
We have to remind ourselves to mention to incoming clients that we don't count syndicated content in what they pay for because it's not apparent to everyone. It's just not. And we have to it's this whole I forget the term, but you're so deep in your field that you forget that this is
Mm-hmm.
like deep knowledge. And so what are syndicated links? I mean, quite frankly, they're kind of fluff from a backlinks SEO perspective. They're like
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call it icing on the cake. Like it's
Oh,
not much of anything.
it's a bit of a shotgun approach, right? Like you're hoping some amount of quality comes out of that volume.
There could be awesome logos. You could get
Yeah.
a you could get a very household name publication in there. You can get a Fox
Yeah.
News. You can get I mean, so it's anyone could clip out what we just talked about and be like, wow, what an asinine way to describe this tactic.
Yeah.
But it's one side of duplicate content where again, it's not technically duplicate, it's literally word for word the same, but because they have the canonical tag, it's not at risk of being true duplicate content from Google's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So which that same concept carried across those hundreds of websites are still true on a single website. So you
That's
could
the
have
bigger
an
concern here.
so the same idea you were talking about with, multiple pages, but these are individual pages on individual websites, all pointing to one URL. That concept exists on a single domain on site.com,
Yeah.
expressed differently frequently, but still exists there. So you can literally have, and I remember when I first learned this, I was like, you're kidding. Like, why would that even be a thing?
Yeah.
You can literally have site http site.com, http www site.com, https site.com, and https www site.com, right? Those could be four different websites. And typically today, that's not a problem. Every once in a while, we still find it. And we go, oh, like it's, from back in the day, legacy, like where are they not now type of BH1, if anyone even knows what that reference is, right? Oh, awesome. Like someone screwed up the technical, like at the very base domain level, it's not
Yeah.
great, right? You're more likely today to find something in staging dot or whatever, however someone phrased that subdomain to be
And so this
available.
is not intentional from most times you encounter it. This is just an accidental.
It's just, yeah, it's from the perspective of the website, quote unquote, works.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it works, right?
And only when you
And
get someone out of the kindness of their heart who reports something funky to you are you made aware of, oh,
Eh,
shoot.
yeah, and you need to know. You need to know what you're looking for. I'm working on a presentation for the Chamber of Commerce here, and I'm trying to make it like such a non-technical thing, but it's SEO's technical. It's got a language all of its own. You can't get away from it, right? So I'm like, how do I relate these things? And one of my new favorite things to do when we're doing an audit is go to look at how many images are bloated. Because if I know that's true, then I know a couple things.
Can you
I know
define that?
that
What do you mean? A bloated image?
bloated images. Yeah. So there's images like that are sort of taken right out of the camera or right off of favoritestockwebsite.com and get put right onto the website. And these images are great for print, right? They're print quality images. And no matter how big the file size, physical size or file size, you're only going to get so much value out of it when it's on the screen, right? So I'm looking at, I like to see like how big, what's the biggest image? And I'm trying to relate this to people who are running a business. Who knows what they do? They have ice cream stores, pizza shops, right? They whatever they actually do. And I started to remember, Back to the Future, when Marty goes back to the future and he finds Doc and he said, well, all we need to do is find like 1.21 gigawatts of plutonium, right? And Doc starts freaking out. And Marty said, well, what are you freaking out about? Because he doesn't, there's this gap in understanding. And so like I'm looking at the images going 1.21 gigawatts. And
Uh,
people who are not technically savvy, they're like, why is that a problem? Because you bloat it. And if that's bloated, that means you don't have a standard operating procedure. You don't have someone doesn't know SEO. So going back to, well, why would the site be even set up that way? Well, because
yeah,
someone
yeah.
doesn't know.
So no
They don't
less,
know.
it is an issue in and of itself, but more importantly, red flag that we've probably got a lot of other issues here.
Totally. Yeah. So then, I mean, that's like when I start to like really dig into it, right? That's exciting. It's, oh, there's going to be so many things to find here, right?
Yeah.
So now we're looking at URLs that may or may not contain a slash, because you can also have a .com slash category
That's right.
slash blog post, no slash or slash, right? That could exist. You can also have so multiple categories, and let's pretend there's three categories and there's only three posts on this website. If you were like, oh man, I want people to find this no matter what category they go on, if it's under red, green, and blue, because I have three articles about primary colors, well, if it's under all three categories, well, now you have the same pieces of content on all three category pages. So which one of those three pages should Google rank? Which one should it actually go to?
Yeah. So,
So,
so for the listener, this is, unless I'm off here, Nick, help me out. For
yeah,
the non-technical listener like me right this moment, we're talking about cannibalization. We're concerned that
that's
your
right.
site is eating itself, for lack of a better explanation here, and that Google is confused. Like, where are you trying to prioritize?
Totally. Yeah. So there's at least two things going on there, Greg. One is Google's confused and you're giving them the ability and also the responsibility of making a decision for you. You never ever want to give Google the right to make a decision. They're going to do what they do, right? They rewrite title tags, they rewrite meta descriptions, whatever, right? But what you don't want to do is go, I didn't do the right things, I didn't put the controls in place, and by default, Google is now making a decision. No, you give it your best shot, right? You fight for each and every click, you fight for each and every rank, you fight for each and every pattern that you can show up in, and I mean, I like to think of the technical when we work on websites. Like we can eat off of that technical. It's so clean. But that's the goal I'm going for. So maybe a little anal about it, but I don't want Google making decisions. I just don't.
What are we talking about? Just, I didn't prep for this question, so I'm going to catch you off guard, but how long is your checklist when you're like, let's say you pick up a bloated image red flag and you're like, we got to start. We got to start from number one now because I'm not sure what we're going to find.
There's about 100 checks that we're looking at, and some of them are subs of something. So so you could say, let's just go to canonical tag, which is it's so terrible that it's a tag because it's really a concept,
Yeah.
right? There's an original piece of content. And most folks even go, well, this page is the original content. Well, there could be pieces of a page that are all over the website, right? Like you have boilerplate down at the bottom. If you go to Optics In, it's like we do web design and SEO for businesses in Carlsbad, California. We rank for SEO and web design in Carlsbad, California. It's also boilerplate, right? So there's an aspect of, well, should this site rank for this because it's boilerplate? So there's a little bit of that going on. But for local sites, that tends to do pretty darn well.
As long as you're not doing the
So,
old listing 742 cities hidden in
oh my
black
God.
text in your footer. Does it
Not
still
only,
work? Does it still work in 2025? Can I do it?
I hope not. I hope I haven't tried it in a long time. I
Kidding,
don't know.
kidding
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah, yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, you try it.
Don't
Let us
go
know how it
highlight our
works.
footer, please.
So there's like the idea of canonical, one true source of information. And going back to the technical slash no slash, www versus no www protocol, secure protocol versus non-secure protocol, same pieces of information categorized. You could also have that same concept, not in a WordPress category. It could be WordPress or it could be a bunch of other CMSs, but also tags. So now we got into tags. And so you can have the same scenario of tags, right? Three tags, three pieces of content, they all get tagged the same way. And so now we're getting into, well, how should we do this? Well, I encourage folks, one, to don't use tags
Interesting.
because they just get misused all the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
So just don't use them. I mean, if the idea is findability, crawlability from Google and findability for users, Google, assuming your site is architected well, technically, they don't need the tags to crawl. They just don't need them. And it gets into crawl budget issues. If you have a big site, now Google's going through all those tags, and if you're like, the more the merrier, you're killing your crawl budget. And the simple definition of crawl budget is time allocation to your website. How often and what's the frequency, right?
Which for
Or the
people
duration of
who
it.
don't know how critical that is, you're looking to see ROI from your SEO campaign, like any marketing campaign.
Yeah.
One of the key components there is when does Google re-index your site, update its SERPs for the latest changes you've made? And so what you're
That's right.
saying, Nick, is if you're gonna make this such a monumental task, Google's gonna be like, oh shit, Jolly's site again. We're gonna delay that one until next week because we know we're gonna have to do X amount of crawl budget for this site.
Totally. Yeah. It's like when your least favorite person calls you again and you're like, I'm going to be exhausted after I get off the phone with this person. I'm going to have to sit on the couch for an hour. I can't pick up this phone today.
Yeah, not
Right?
now.
Just
I'll
not
hear their
today.
update next week and could have been something you're interested in, but it's just not gonna happen now.
No, don't have it in me. I got to keep on going. And Google's going to go, do I go to the Jolly site? Do I go to the Optic site? Do I go to customer site X, Y, or Z?
Yeah.
Well, the better that you are in terms of making your site healthy, then Google can come back to it, find more the next time it comes, and then it comes more often, typically. So you can build a bigger, better site, and it keeps on going there and building it up.
What
So that's the,
another question you didn't maybe expect, in software there's a term technical debt. How much
yeah,
of your job is in technical debt, meaning you're accumulating all the while this debt of as life changes externally, as your team adds in new things, the system you built is no longer functioning, and you end up with this massive amount of backlog or extra work that needs to be done to catch up. So, like, what percent or what amount of your work is less building out new pages and more cleaning up existing content for things that have changed?
yeah, yeah. I would categorize it in a couple different ways. One is typically the older the company on homegrown CMSs,
Oh, yeah.
those are the ones where you're like, oh man,
Oh,
we're
wow.
detangling things. Yeah.
That's right, because
Um,
for most of us who started in the last 10 years are like, well, what? I just use a plugin, a theme, whatever. But there's a lot of custom built sites out there.
so yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So we have a customer we're working with now who is on Shopify, who went who went headless and then went back
Yeah.
and has a bunch of apps. So Shopify has apps, WordPress has plugins. Same.
Yeah.
It's just two different words. And the apps aren't playing nice.
Yeah.
So
They
one of
stopped
the
playing nice
findings,
when they went headless or when they came back.
it's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a mess.
It's a bit of a mess.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the first two findings going back to, that sort of that image, the bloated image thing.
Yeah.
In this case, I mean, yes, there were bloated images, but I was like, this is the first time I've ever seen this. This is the first time I've ever seen no title tags on 300 pages of a website. Missing, gone, not present, outside the head. It was outside the head, aka bad HTML. I don't know how long it was outside the head for, but typically pages without title tags don't do well. I just saw another one actually last night. So we found that we're like, so early finding, low hanging fruit, get this going. We didn't even sign the SOW yet. We're just like, get
You
this
should
going
you should
already.
just
Yeah. And then as we got more into the audit, the canonical tag was also outside the head, right? So there was code from apps that was getting injected inside the head that was pushing things around. Even if header open, head close, the title tag and the canonical were in there, it wasn't reading that way. So it was a problem, malformed HTML. So throwing a bunch of things off, right? And so going, can we bring this back to the original topic? Sort of, a little bit.
Yeah, I did veer from the duplicate and the cannibalization with that. You're right. But
Yeah.
it just struck me as so much of your work is cleanup. And that's,
A lot of it is cleanup. A lot of it is cleanup. Yeah. And so like that canonicalization, duplicate content, tons of cleanup there. And ideally we're working with folks where it's really an SEO project, search engine optimization. We're
yeah,
making it better than what it is. We're starting at neutral. Sometimes there's a deficit going back to technical debt, right? So that this is the client I mentioned, there's technical debt there. They have to detangle the spaghetti code before we can start to see what's really true from a baseline,
yeah.
fix those things, then move forward.
So when you're thinking about duplicate content, there's a bit of, let's call it emotional attachment to content. The content creator, or maybe the person who commissioned the content. There, I don't know if you've been involved in these conversations, but there's a lot of resistance to pruning content, even when you can lay it out clearly. Look,
Yeah.
I it's a cool piece of content, but it's totally screwing up your SERPs for this other piece of content on your business's site. Like I'm not talking about throw away the SERPs op here. I'm talking about you
Yeah.
are pulling yourself down. So what do you do there when there's some friction for, oh, what you don't understand, this piece isn't hurting us. Like it's really a great piece.
The most egregious on page duplicate content, shall we call it, out of the technical, now we're on page, right?
Yeah.
Egregious on page technical duplicate content that have run into was when I was working at dmv.org, which was a private publisher not associated with the DMV.
Yeah.
We just happen to have a whole lot of DMV content. So it was like, how do I get my license in state? How do I get my license? How do I find lost license in state? Registration in state, that type of content.
I remember DMV.org. I didn't know you were a part of that until we just started talking today.
Yeah, so I started there in 2012, and the site at the time was getting 85 million visits a year.
Yeah.
And when I left 6 years later, right before the catastrophic drop, it was getting 185 million visits a year, and a lot of that was due to technical cleanup. So this is one of my favorites. So there was all these, we had system variables, and a lot of them were state. So you just put in state, whatever percent state percent, and then it would pull in the state, and that was done for 50 states, 51 states. DC was a state for a bunch of different things like Segway insurance, like snowmobile insurance. So think snowmobile insurance in Hawaii. Snow, it was a page. Snowmobile insurance, I kid you not, in Florida, right? These were real pages. And some of them had but a paragraph because someone thought it was a good idea, knew how to spin up 51 pages, and then forgot about it. So snowmobile, Segway insurance, there was a bunch of other ones. And my job for probably a year and a half was presenting on a weekly basis. We're going to go kill 100 pages. Are
Yeah.
you sure? Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why again? Because who the F needs snowmobile in Hawaii when you know they live in New Jersey or Vermont and you know that's actually where they wanted to get their insurance? And you as a business, that's you want to direct them to where they can make their transaction, not a
Yes.
useless page. It seemed like a great idea at the time, I'm sure. The intent from the SEO side, I'm sure, was to get more traffic and even
Yep.
qualified, but then you're making their life harder as the user.
Yeah. And then you get back to, sort of out of the SEO lens and get into the brand lens where
Right.
SEO, any marketing tactic should be an expression of that brand and should be able to support the brand. So there's this, symbiotic relationship going on there. But from the perspective of we're DMV.org, where does Segway insurance fit into this? Where does snowmobile insurance fit into this? This
Oh,
has
right.
nothing to do
Yeah.
about your license or your registration. It's noise. So let's make the core of this website really good. And we did. And it went from the 85 million to 185 million in 6 years.
That's awesome. Nick,
It was
we call it TLDR, and so I'm gonna cut us off short, even though I think we could go for round three when you're ready. If you don't mind, having said that, cutting us short, can you tell the peeps where to find you until next time?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So you can go to opticsin.com or you could search for Carlsbad, California SEO. That could work. We specialize in SEO and building WordPress websites. Happy to help you out in any way we can.
Nick, it's awesome to learn from you. Thank you so much, man. I'm serious. It'd be great to have you back.
I would love to.
Thank you so much.